Okay, Kidushin is one of the more enjoyable Masechtas, the famous Masechtas. We learn it all the time. So a few haras about Masechta. These things are familiar with. We're familiar with the concept of there's two stages to a Jewish marriage. There's two stages to a Jewish marriage. The first one being Kidushin, or what we call Erison. When a woman is an Arusa, for all intents and purposes, she's an Ashes Ish. If anyone will be Mazana with her, she be dead, he be dead. No other man, she can't accept Kidushin from another man. If she would get pregnant from another man, that child will be a mamza. He inherits her. If he's a kohen, he's metamet to her, right? If she makes the darim, he can take it off. This is all the first stage of marriage. It's all the first stage of marriage. That's called we call Kidushin. Now the second part, which we call Nisuin. We call Nisuin, which for better use of any word, we'll call it chuppah. With chuppah. And this is very interesting. I wish somebody would have told us a long time ago. I sent this out on the see you have it on the. I sent it out, a few things. See what you have there. Okay? See what you have there. I'm going to go ahead and put this out for a minute and get this down and get this down and get this down. You should have two things on your phone. You should have a Rambam with bold letters, and you don't have the other thing because where is it? I don't know where it is. You have it? Okay, I think I'm missing it. Okay, I don't have it. Okay, so I maybe have it on the phone. I sent it on the WhatsApp. I don't know why it's not on my computer, but it's not. Yeah, I do have WhatsApp on my computer, but I do have it on the phone over here also, so I should be able to get it. Okay, so I sent out the following. This is a Yesh Aimim. This is a Ramah. The chuppah ain't a yichud. We know that after Kidushin, you had to be miyached. After Kidushin, you had to be miyached a yichud with your wife. The yichud with your wife. That would constitute what we call nisuin, right? That would constitute what we call nisuin. This nisuin. You bring it to your house l'shem nisuin. That's one explanation of what chuppah is. You'd go ahead and spread a suda, some type of kerchief, handkerchief, or cloth on their heads. B'shas habracha. The chuppah besula mishiyatza behinuma. We saw that in Masechta Ksubis. A besula is someone who goes up behinuma, some type of headpiece, and they would go ahead and cover with the headpiece. That we go ahead and put it on top of a pole. So, be'emes, guys, when you go to a wedding, what you're witnessing is chuppah is three things. One, where the badeking. The badeking is what we said that you put behinuma, that a basul would go up behinuma when they cover the girl. So if that's chuppah and you need edim for that, so you should ostensibly have edim standing there when the chassan is badeks the kala. In fact, I was at a wedding and I was the aid, and they told me that the guy was makbid that they had the edim there b'shas badekim. So what? Right, Rokin does it also. Yeah. So that's one thing. So the second thing is that what we call chuppah is the classic chuppah underneath, and the third thing, which is people. I think it's an American thing. Like, if you don't think about it, okay, they just got married, let them have a few minutes together, right? The chas and the kala, let them have it. It's not true. That's according to the that's yichud. That's bringing the first one. That's bringing into the rishus. In fact, yes, 1,000%. Everyone holds an edim on that. Everyone. Usually the Eidei Kidushin are the Eidei Yichud. Now, it's fascinating, but that people don't know, and they should know, is that you should give the caterer $1 to buy the yichud room,
Right.
because you want to go ahead to rent it, because you want to bring it into your rishus. You want to bring it into your rishus. And in fact, my sons, they so before I saw this, before son-in-law had sons, they told me what to do. So that was the
More than enough. You don't do that to balance.
okay, listen. Okay, but anyway,
No, but he has to, not the girl side.
he has to buy it. He has to buy it now. So this is all what we do bisman hazeh. But if you look at the Rambam, I sent you out a very famous Rambam, guys. This is a very famous Rambam. The Rambam is in Hilchos Ishus, Perek Aleph, Halacha Aleph. It's the Rambam. Let me just Baruch. Okay. And the Rambam says the following. The Rambam says, "Oh, I don't have anything. It's much crazy. I'm looking at Gerushin over here. I'm Rambam and Gerushin. I don't think I download anything. Let me. Oh, I have it. I have it. Good. It says Koidema. Oh, but I can't share it yet. It's not good. Okay, let me have it. Now I'm trying to share it, and the screen is on at the same time, and trying to figure this out. Guys, bear with me. Okay, I'm good now. Okay, you'll be Zoom. Share. Okay. Now you should be good, right? You should be good. Okay. Now, before Matan Torah, a person would meet a girl in the street. This sounds like something out of the caveman. Watch this. Imratzahu v'hi Lisa, if they both want to get married, would go ahead and bring him into his house. Do we know Adam, and he would have physical relations with her? That you're taking her and she's your wife. However, once the Torah was given, then everything changed. Once the Torah was given, then everything changed. What happened? Now there's a mitzvah to go ahead and get married. If he wants to get married, it's not enough to bring her into rishus. It's mashma that in the suin there was no Kidushin, there was just the suin. But in other words, in our terms, what we would call living together, they lived together, but there wasn't the act of kinyan, what we call Kidushin before. And what does the Torah say? Ish ki yikach es isha. The lashon of kicha, the lashon, as we're going to see tonight, is the lashon of kicha is bringing mat into one's rishus. It's the lashon of kinyan. Kimin shenas the Torah nestabi Yisrael shem yirtza ish lisa isha yiknoi satchila. He should acquire first b'fnei edim v'yakach tila leisha, and afterwards she'll be for him a wife. Shenemar ki yikach ichishu ba'alaha. And it's a mitzvah now to get married. Mitzvah the right to get married. Mekayim perivya and ki yikach. So now, v'lekuchin elu mitzvahs asay shel Torahim ube'echad mishleisha devarim ha'isha niknas. This mitzvah deraisa called Kidushin can be acquired in one of three ways: b'kesef, oy b'shtar, oy b'biyah. Either with giving kesef or shava kesef, we'll see, oy b'shtar, giving a shtar, oy b'biyah, or with biyah. B'biyah u'b'shtar min ha'Torah u'b'kesef min divrei sefer. Okay, the Rambam, it's beyond the scope of the Hakdama and the Shir right now. The Rambam sheet of kesef being the Rabban, and after all, it brings the shava. That's mashmitz deraisa. Okay, l'chol ha'pachas, you get an idea of what Kidushin is. Kidushin is the act of kinyan that precedes Nisuin, right, in order to go ahead and facilitate these two stages of marriage. Again, and it's very geschmack masech. It's loaded with stuff. It's hard. The hardest part of saying this year is what not to say, not what to say. But it's just interestingly enough, when you say Isha Niknas B'Shleisha Derachim, let's begin the Masechta. Isha Niknas B'Shleisha Derachim, I'll show you right off the bat a great Rashi. Look at the first Rashi. Isha Niknas L'Baila, right, to a husband. What's he telling? Who else? Who else? Right? Who else? Right? So it's Lafuke Shifcha, guys. You can be kind of shivka, but not. It's lafuke shivcha. The baila to the baila, but lafuke shivcha be kind of shivcha. Not. Aisha niktas b'shleisha derachim Because of shivcha, if you kind of an amivriya, it's with usually with kesef, it's yud, right? So isha nichnas b'shleisha derachim, b'koines atzma b'shtei derachim. The lashon of the Mishnah will spend a lot of time on this evening. Anisha is acquired one of three ways, and she acquires herself in two ways. How is she acquired? Niknis b'kesef, b'shtar u'b'biyah. We just saw that, right? B'kesef, how much kesef? B'shamay oimrim b'dina u'b'shavadina, a dina u'b'shavadina, u'b'soloimim b'pruta u'b'shavapruta. Okay, so we have Shammai being more expecting more money for the girl, and Beisil saying pruta shavapruta. Okay, now I think it's important to realize when you say kesef, what do you think of? When you say kesef, what I know what you think of. You think of vacation. No, what do you say? Right? Currency. And what use is it? And how do you use it? To buy something, right? Now, when you make a kinyan to buy something, right? You make a kinyan to buy something according to most people, according to Sma and Simon Kuf Tzadik, it usually is but it usually is Dava Shava B'Shava. In other words, you may think the guy is overcharging you, but you're not giving him a dollar. You're not giving him a dollar for a suit. You're not giving him a dollar for a suit, right? You're not. When we make kinyonim for metalton, fellas, right? Most of the kinyonim are putting in your rishus, but the kesef is for shava shava. So, for example, you buy a cow, and what's the kinyan on the cow? Mashicha. You're going to pull the cow into your rishus. Unless you give the guy money, it doesn't make anything. You're not giving him money and pulling the cow into your rishus. It's called gazela, right? And it's called stealing. So usually, when you make a kinyan, the kesef, you're dav shava b'shava. Which woman is worth a shava pruta? Stop smiling. Again, so clearly, the at least the Sma learns that the kesef of Kidushin is more symbolic in nature, despite the fact that it's a kinyan. It's more symbolic in nature of acquiring something. That's the ring. That exactly. So what's the ring? $50, $100. It is exactly. It's worth. So underneath the chuppah, say what's it worth. Shava puta. You say yeah. And Rashiva used to say. I always hear this when I'm on the Eid, and no one ever says it. But the Rashiva of Kusma was makbid. He said, "Is ein shtick? Is it one piece? Because it's not one piece. You can tell, yeah." So I always like with the stuff to the Masada Kidushin. You didn't ask if it's one piece. Anyway, so if it separates apart, then it may not be a shava pruta. It has to, you have to know that the thing is. So clearly, according to the Samai, it's more symbolic in nature, and it explains some of the really crazy Gemaras. Actually, crazy is not the word. More interesting Gemaras we're going to see, guys. We're going to see a Gemara that has a Havamina that if the woman would give the money to the man, she should be Mekudeshes. Great. In other words, you pay right. So in other words, printing, you're going to pay someone to take your printing job. You're going to pay him. It doesn't make any sense. How could it be? If kesef is a typical kinyan, what kind of havamina is that the woman should be acquired by her husband by giving him the money? If you say it's more symbolic in nature, then it's possible to say what? You know what? It would explain that. Mashenkin, if you're going to say that it's mamash a classic kinyan, what's the havamina of the Gemara that she become mudeshes by selling herself? It does.
If she gives money to him, that's like
no, she's giving it to get married. She's giving him to get married. The Gemara is going to Gemara is going to entertain. Again, we didn't even do the Gemara yet. Gemara is going to entertain the Havamina that if she gives him money, she's Mekudeshes. Now, if you're going to learn it's a classic kinyan, Heshi, think about it. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's like you're giving a person money to buy. And you take it from me. Yeah, you take money and I'm married to you. It doesn't make. But if you say it's symbolic in nature, this Rav Shawai says that would be a good raya to that. Okay, so now we have machloikas beishaim beishilul bepruta b'shava pruta. Now the Gemara does something very interesting. What does it do? It's yes right away. V'kamahi pruta. How many times in Shas do you have shava pruta, guys? That pruta, all the time, right? It never asks how much is a shava pruta. Echad mishmoina be'isa talki. It's 1/8 of an Italian Isser, according to the Chazan Ish in Yeridea Kuf Pei Beis, and when you test, it equals 1/40 of a gram of what? Of silver. So if you look at Rashi is very geschmack, guys. Says Rashi on these inyanim. What's kesef? Kesef shtar mefarish bebrayse b'gemara. The first thin line. Noisen lo kesef v'shava kesef. V'oimer lo hariyat mukedesh esli. Shtar koisav lo al niyor. You write on a paper. Alpha b'shein a shava pruta. The paper is not worth a shava pruta. Hariyat mukedesh esli. Bia bo'alev amis skacheli b'bia zu. The kuluf yolam yakroi timed by sham mefarish b'gemara will explain. All of them will learn that in the pasuk. We have a pasuk for kesef. We have a pasuk for shtar. We have a pasuk for bia. We're going to learn that all of them. And the time of Beishamai, why a dina will say in the Gemara, pruta shel nechayshes, isra talki shel kesef v'damav, and what's its value? Shmeina prutais. There are 8 prutais to one isra talki. So no, it's 1/8. A pruta is 1/8 of what of an isra. It's 1/8 of an isra talki. It's 1/8 of an isra talki. Now, the Rishash points out that what does Rashi want to accomplish over here? He goes from the chayshes to kesef. What's he trying to do? He goes, he's trying to give you a denomination of kesef. In other words, the copper is the cheapest metal. Kesef is one of chashivas. If I would correlate exactly on a scale of silver, how much would a pruta be on that? It's 1/8 of the silver of this Italian issa. It's 1/8 of it, because again, it's niskasha. Like what? No. What kind of value does it have in the silver, the realm of silver, which was the currency of the time? So we're trying to go ahead and give a value of a copper coin in a silver venue, and it's very geschmack. If you look at Taisus, guys, the kama he pruta. Taisus asked a very good question. Kamahu dinar. In other words, you ask pruta, yes, right away. How much is the pruta? Why don't you ask how much is a dinar? Shami said dinar. Why don't you ask how much is a dinar? Why don't you ask right away how much is a dinar? Mishum dedina hoya yoidim kamo. They knew. Shu echa michav daled midir shal zav kedamim perakas zav. Ava pruta ika plukta b'gemara zimnin zili. Some it's cheaper, zimnin yakir, some it's more expensive. V'oid the divrei beishamay the kaimlan kavasi boile fushi tvei. We have to explain it more. But like the Rishash, Taisus kasha not a kasha. We didn't ask dina because it's kesef. I know what it is. I know what kesef is, but if I'm going to give a value of a copper coin, I have to know in the realm of silver how much it is, and that would be explained beautifully. So again, very geschmack. So now we have she's kind herself in 3 ways, and she's nickness in 3 ways, and she's kind herself in 2 ways. The 3 ways is kesef, shtar, ubia, and what about the kind of satzma of a get u'b'misas habal? She acquires herself what with the get and the misas habal. In other words, we just finished all Masechta, Masechta Gittin. We just learned it. Masechta Gittin, we learned it, and in the Masechta we learned that V'nasla Chasla Sefer Krisis V'nasla Yada, and you got divorced. So that she's now in her own jurisdiction. The misas habal, and if the husband dies, and l'chayra there is no brother, and l'chayra the husband dies and there's no brother. If there is a brother, then you have what? You have yibum. If without again, or misas habal if there's children, right? If the misas habal and there's children, she acquires herself, correct? Right? Now, a yavama niknis bibia. A yavama is only acquired bibia, right? There's no need for Kidushin, just bia. We learned in Masechta Yavamis there is something called mimer, that we said if you would go ahead and give money to the Yavama, she would now be usher on the other brothers. And if you want to end the relationship, you'd have to give chalitza for the zika and get for the mimer. This is what we discussed in Masechta Yavamis a little while ago. The koines atzam v'chalitza b'misas hayavam, she acquires herself what? With chalitza or the death of the yavam. So quickly, a quick synopsis of the Mishnah, a quick summary of the Mishnah. You have Kidushin, the first step of marriage, kesef shtar ubia, koines atzma with misas habal or a get. What is the share of Kidushin? Is a dinar or shavadina lebeishamai, pruta shava pruta lebeis hillel. A yavam is only acquired with bia, and a yavam go free with the chalitza or the misa of the yavam. Today's daf is going to explain very much. To go ahead and understand this, we have to look at the Mishnah on Daf Mem Beis. Maybe your hot scroll doesn't have it. I apologize, but I can't apologize for the. Okay, Mem Aleph Amid Aleph. Okay, good. 40. Okay, so 41, Joe. That's what.
No,
Oh, it has it.
it stops.
Oh, it would make sense. It would make sense. Okay,
Oh, here.
it would make sense. Okay, so now what does it say? Cha'ish mekadesh bo ubishlucho. A man is mekadesh an isha, either himself or with a shliach. Ha'isha miskadeshes, a woman is miskadeshes ba, either herself, ubishlucha. Good. So now, by the man, it says the lashon of Kidushin. It also happens to say the isha miskadeshes ba ubishlucha. The Gemara is going to contrast two things. One, why the lashon of kinyan over here, the lashon of Kidushin over there, and why isn't there a consistency? Why do we speak about the woman over here and the man over there? Either speak about the man over here, right, or the woman over there, and we're going to go back and forth between the two possibilities. Okay, so Isha niknas, the woman is niknas. Isha niknas, Maishna hacha the tani Isha niknas, u'maishna hasam the tani ish mekadesh. Okay, what's the question, fellas? Which is the more mistabra to say, niknas or kedushin or miskadeshes? Okay, look at Rashi. U'maishna hasam the perik sheni the tana ha'ish mekadesh b'oy b'shlucha nisni hacha ish miskadeshes. You should learn over here. The woman is miskadeshes. That's what you should learn. In other words, kinyan is a very universal term. In other words, you very easily can make a mistake and think that, like we spoke out, or you buy a cow, and you buy this, you buy your wife.
Actually, you have public, because you said at the beginning, which was Labaila, but you wouldn't have to have said Labaila if you used the washing condition.
You wouldn't have said either. So now, it's very interesting that so why don't you use the lashon that is more appropriate for Kidushin rather one that is more ambiguous, right? Says the Gemara, I'll tell you why. Mishum de kaboy limisni kesef, because you want to learn kesef. Okay, what does that mean? That you want to say that kesef is a kinyan. You want to say that kesef is a kinyan by an isha. So for that reason, you learn to isha nikness. Now, this Gemara is very strange, because what does Gemara do now? The kesef mean dalan. Now, how do you know kesef's a kinyan? But look at Rashi. Rashi says the kesef mean dalan. Says Rashi, right? Mishum de kaboyla nisni kesef mean dalan lav hacha kaboyla. It's not speaking over here. We're not asking over here. Come on, it's really a Gemara later on Daf Gimel. We want to answer the whole thing. Mishum de kaboyla v'sni kesef. The kesef minalon yafinu come on mekicha kicha lashin kinyan hu they'll tani ishanikness. In other words, we're not really analyzing the Gemara of kesef minalon. We just brought it in for the one point that kesef minalon that it's a kinyan. So the Gemara is very megam. I learned this years ago. I never understood it to this day. I never understood why the lashon of the Gemara is strange, guys. It should say kidetanya, right? The isha kidetanya kidetnan. Like you learn later on. The Gemara is a Rashi fetches a pshatin over here. Kesef mina. In other words, kesef. You should learn the ishanikness. Why? Because kesef is a kinyan. How do you know kesef is a kinyan? Because of the Gemara and Daf Dalet. But it doesn't flow like that. So I saw today something fascinating, fellas. You'll notice two things. One, the Gemara doesn't read well, and two, there's not one Amoira mentioned in the Gemara. And that base, usually you have Amarav, Amarav Yochanan, Amarav Chana. You'll have an Amoira mentioned. Says Rav Shvira Goin that Daf Beis and Kidushin was written by the Rabbanan Savaroi. It was not written by Ravina Ravashi. Yeah, it explains it beautifully. It wasn't written by the traditional Talmudists, Ravina Ravashi, who are used to their style. And B, you're not quoting any one of them. It's fascinating that this. I always was bothered by this kvetchy pshat here on this Rashi in the bottom. It doesn't flow, and the reason is because it wasn't written by the people that were used to writing it. And the raya of Shrir brings is there was no mention. Usually, a block Gemara doesn't go by without mentioning the Amoyer who says something, right? We have a Mishnah, a Tana, then you have the Amoyer explaining it. There's no Amoyer over here. Follow along. You'll trust me. It's not here. There's no Amoyer whatsoever. I'm saying I'm going to find one and get on your case. Anyway, says the Gemara. So
Laser.
No,
I'm back with
and
the
better,
Akdama.
1 second, and better than ever.
Oh, thank you. And as it was the Akdama that you gave before of how you can you consider Kesef to be a Kinyan because it's not of equal value, right?
Well,
So why?
I'll answer your question, Mayor. it is a kinyan, but it's not the kinyan traditional way. Anisha Niknas, you did acquire your wife, but you didn't acquire it the way you acquire your cow. Does that answer your question?
Okay.
You understand? You
Yeah.
wanted to answer the way I explained it. It's not a kinyan at all. I never said it's not a kinyan at all. I said it's a kinyan, but it's more symbolic in nature rather than what.
Right. So that would add to the question of why you should say miskadeshes more than nickness.
Yeah, enachinami. Exactly. That would be very good. It would be more appropriate to say that. Very excellent. Okay, May, it's good to have your hand back. It was very nice. You raised your hand.
Thank you.
Your hand was very nice.
Thank you.
Anyway, you got to see what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the hand. I'm not looking at a person. I'm looking at a hand. Hand in the hand. What? Okay. Whatever. Anyway, so we learn now from the Avram Avinu was kind of from Ephraim, the Arsam Pela. So Gomer Kicha Kicha it says Kicha Kish Isha. It says in Dvarim and Parshas Kisei where a man marries a woman. Ksivhasam Nasati Kesava Sada Kach Mimeni. He goes, take the Kesava Sada Kach Mimeni. The Kicha. So good. So I know that Kesef what over here that Sadas with Kesef and I here is Kesef. It says Lashon Kicha Kach Mimeni. Right, Kach Mimeni this field. And now, how do you know it was with Kesef? Maybe it was with Shtar or Bia. No, not Bia, obviously. Ksiv Hasada Shekana Avram. The Sada Avram is Kaina. The Sada Avram is a Kaina. Now, that is you assume that Avram gave it because he gave over Arba Meya He gave a tremendous amount of money. But the second pasuk is more open. Inami, another source, it says Sadas Bakesef Yiknu. So you see it's more open where it says what Sadas Kesef Bakesef Yiknu. Okay. What? The Rambam said it's the Rabbanim. What did I say? That was before Matan Torah. All we're learning at, we're only learning at that Kesef is called a kinyan. We're not learning at Kidushin. We're not learning at Kidushin. We only learn Kesef as a kinyan, right? Okay. So therefore, okay. So therefore, now we're getting to the teretz, guys. The long-winded teretz, right? Tana Hishanikness. This is why I say it's modna. Usually the Gemara is concise. You know, boom. This is what you know. So therefore, a long-winded answer to the question, why does it say an Isha Niknash, not Isha Mishkadeshes, is because we want to teach me that Kesef is called the Kinyan. You want to tell me the Kesef is called the Kinyan. Fred Gemara, Vinisni Hasam Ha'ish Kaina. Why don't you learn over here Ha'ish Kaina? Says Gemara, Meikara Tani Lishna Deraisa, Ulbasayv Tani Lishna Derabanan. First, we learn the Lishna Deraisa, the Lishna of Kinyan, and later on we learn the Lishna Derabanan, which is what? Which is Kidushin. Well, my Lishna Derabanan, right? And what's the Lishna Derabanan? The Asala Akuli Alma Kehegdish, that she's going to be Asa on the whole world like Hegdish. Now, you said to you, each person who was here said one time in their life, hopefully, sometimes, Hariyat Mekudeshes Li B'Tabazu Kidash Moshe B'Yisrael, right? Hariyat Mekudeshes Li B'Tabazu, the Lashon of Kidushin. Now, how does it work? Why is the Lashon the Rabbanan? So look at Taisvis. The Asala Kuli Alma Kehegdish, Hariyat Mekudeshes Li, Kloimar Li Yois Li Mekudeshes L'Olam. Bishvili. In other words, how are you asu on the world? Because you're kodesh to me. Usually hegdish is universal. If you magdish something, it's universally hegdish to everybody. How does kedushin work? Since she's mekudeshes li to me, therefore she's asu on everybody else. If you would say hariyat mekudeshes and not say li, she'd be asu on you too. If you're going to mekadesh a woman, yeah, guys, you say hariyat mekudeshes should be asu on you also, right? Like everybody else. But by saying Hariyat Mekudesh is li, Mekudesh to me, what are you saying? And now you're also on the whole world. And now continues Taisvis. Hariyim Mekudashim l'Shemayim, Lios l'Shemayim. It means to Shemayim. Upashta the Milsa. You know what it means? Mekudeshes li, Miyuchedes li, Umizumenes li. You are Mekudeshes to me. You're Miyachet to me. Umizumenes li. These are the lashon of. We can see later on the Gemara the lashon of Kedushin. So this is what. Umiyu, im hayoyim talazu mekudish li. Let's say this tad. Could I ask the world on a talus by saying it's kodesh to me? That wouldn't work. Ein near shiol. The gabi isha b'mad misyachedes lias lehi neseres. How does she become asa? Because she miyuchid to you. But by this esrig being miyuchid to you, this talus being miyuchid to you, doesn't create an isra. Avokika v'talus l'shayach l'meimach. It's not shayach to say. By saying by an isha that you're miyuchid to me, that's passed for me and no one else, right? Mashen came to say that just because an esrig is miyachid to me or a kikar is miyachid to me, there's no reason to ask it everybody else. So it says a isha. So we say ish kaina. We say a ish kaina, and ish kaina is teaching me what. We say isha miskadesh nickness because why derech kinyan. So once you're derech kinyan, why do you say isha kaina? So you want to say first we learn ish lashon kaina of the rabbanon a deraisa, and then later on we're going to learn a lishna what that is. It's a little shveret teretz, guys, because in the next mission it says isha miskadeshes. In other words, if you're telling me first the lashon, I pointed out when we did it. My brother Zalman was bothered by this question for a lot of years. It says the ish mekadesh boya b'shlucha will be ish miskadeshes. So, in other words, what do you tell me? In our Mishnah, you're telling me ish nickness, so you tell me lashon of deraisa, and then in the next one you're telling me ish. Fred the Gemara say ish kaina. So the Gemara, you want to tell me lashon ma'ad of deraisa, of the rabbanon. So why do you tell me ish miskadeshes? But you tell me lashon of the rabbanon by ish there also. Okay, anyway, call it pachas. Fred the Gemara invita the nisli hacha ish kaina. Okay, we did that already. No, we didn't. The nisli ish. So we have this. You should learn over there ish kaina, right? So Fred the Gemara nisli hacha ish kaina. So learn over here ish kaina. In other words, if you're so makbid on the deraisidic level of saying kaina versus the rabbanic level of makadesh, but let's be consistent in both places. That's speaking about the man. This is speaking about the man, right? So let's speak again. I told you the two variables over here. There's the people involved and the lashon used. So we just exhausted the lashon used, correct? We exhausted. Why doesn't it say Nikadeshus over here? Why doesn't it, because we want lashon Kenya, right? And over there, lashon the Rabban and the Raisa. Now, so why doesn't v'nisnei hacha ish kaina? Says going mishum the gaboy lemisnei seifa of a mishnah of a koines asma bidida taninami reisha bidida. So we could have learned to ish kaina, a man acquires, but then you wouldn't be able to say what in the seifa and she acquires herself. So to be consistent with the seifa that speaks about her, the reisha also speaks about her. Fred Gemara v'nisni or ish kaina umakna. Okay, we're persisting and saying that let's keep with the lashon of the man by saying kaina. What are you doing, guys? Kaina, so using the lashon deraisa. What does makna do? It takes off the problem of the female out of the picture. Because makna, you're going to give it over. So now l'chayra, we would go ahead be mekayim the lashon deraisa of kaina. We'd also be consistent with the lashon of ish. You wouldn't have a problem with the seifa. Of course, makna, he's going ahead and being makna of freedom. Now, the answer is pasha, guys. If he gives a get, is he being makna of freedom? Yes. If he dies, is he being makna of freedom? No. Who's being makna of freedom? God, says the Gemara. Mishum de'ikam misas habal delavi komakna min shemayahu demakna. Therefore, that's one reason you could not learn what you cannot learn the ish. Kaina umakna. Be by sema. And here's another reason you can't learn ish kaina. Itana kaina. If you learn kaina, have amina afilu bal karcha. Tana isha nickness. A woman is acquired. The midaita in shaloi midaita loy. So watch. Isha miskareshes. Yeah, a woman is miskareshes. Does she have a say in the matter? Midaraisa? No. Right? We just finished getting. You can divorce before the Chayim of Ganagation, you can divorce your wife Balkarfa. Says the Gemara, if it would say Ish Kaina, you know what you would think? That just like you can divorce your wife against her will, so too you can marry her against her will. And therefore it doesn't say Ish. It says Isha nickness is now up to her to make a decision. The Havamina of the Gemara is very fair. How can you Bishlema get, you have her already, she's in your jurisdiction, to go ahead and divorce her against, you could be one-sided. But l'chayret, the person to marry, who you're going to marry, you'd have a Havamina that go over to a woman, give money, I am that's the Havamina. So yeah, pull him right here in the cave. Now, there's a Rashba here, guys. Rashba. Can I force you to sell something? Yeah. No, I don't mean by making you an offer. There's two ways. I can make you an offer you can't refuse by giving you a lot of money, or I could do it in the Marlon Brando method, right? You can use, right? Yeah, take the cannolis and leave the gun, right? You could use another method. So there's a din of, it's called kfiyah. Kfiyah by a kinyan works. In other words, you force the guy, it's done. What about by Kidushin? In other words, you force you put a gun to the head and say, are you Kiddush? Which goes, absolutely, right? Then, in other words, in that case, it's not a good kinyan. So that's the way the Rashba answers the kasha. In other words, kfiyah that would work normally by the other kinyanim would not work by an isha. So therefore, you can't, but that would be a havamina, right? So therefore, you can't leave kaina, because each kaina you'd have a havamina. That's just like kinyanim can be forced, so to the isha can be forced, and you can't go back on it. Kamash malon, isha niklis is right, it's only totally in the woman and not the man whatsoever. Very gishmak. Now, you just went ahead and you took care of what? Of the lashon of isha, niknis, mikudeshes. Let me take all care of that now. Fellas, do you remember me hacking you about numbers, how it works in Judaism? How do you figure out, how do you know it's an amma, right, and not an etzba? So we said it's always the reverse, right? In other words, it's shloisha tfachim. Shloisha with a hey is female, tfachim is male. It's arba amis, right? Why? Because arba is four, and amis is female. In other words, so in Judaism, in Hebrew, the word that we usually is a female word is really a male word. So in other words, it really should read over here the following: Ha'isha niknis b'shloisha derachim. In other words, the word derech usually is what? The word derech is usually what? Is usually zacha. I would think derech is zacha. So if derech is zacha, what does the Hebrew word have to be? It has to be shleisha. It has to be nekeva. So now we have a problem dealing with this, and that's going to take us to the end of the daf this evening. We're going to hack that, but this is something in yeshiva they should have taught you a long time ago. That it's always the reverse, but it's always the reverse. But when you call it, you'll call shleisha zacha and you call shalish nekeva. So this is lashon nekeva over here. So frag the Gemara kasha the following. Frag the Gemara the following. Umay year you did tani shalish, listen shleisha. Now what's the kasha? What's the big spitz? You know. Taisvis, Lisni Shleisha, Pirish, Mishum Dechala Torah Kula, Beloshin Zacha Nemra. Kala Torah Kula said Beloshin Zacha. In other words, when you read the Torah, it's written first person as Zacha, as male. So Memela and Torah Shabbat Peh also, you should read as Zacha. So don't use Shalish, which is Nekeva, use Shleisha, which is what? Which is Zacha. Use Shleish, which is Zacha. And for the Gemara, Mishum the Kaboy Limisni Derech. The derech lashon nekevahu. You know why we use the word nekev shalish? Because derech is not what you thought that derech is lashon zacha. Derech is lashon nekeva. So memela, I use the word shalish, which is nekeva. Now, how do you know that derech is nekeva? It says vaydata lehem es derech yelchu ba. It says by Matan Torah. It says regarding the Torah. So what does it say? It says in Shmois Yucheschaf v'izarta eshem es hachukim v'es hatoros. You should go ahead and warn them. Oh, I thought it was my computer. Anyway, v'izarta eshem es hachukim v'es hatoros v'idata lehem, and make known to them es haderech yelchu bo, the way it should go. Es ha'ma'aser sheyasa. So the Torah. So now over here, there now. How do you know it's the cave over here, guys? Watch the time. So what does it say? That what's the word say? Not boy. It says ba. Ba is the cave. So Mamela, therefore, you answer to the kasha. It says shalosh drachim, because derech in fact is the cave, and shalosh is the cave, and that's why we don't use the word shloisha. Okay, everything would be shmak. Ella haditanya. Change the gears, guys. Ella haditnan. It's the Mishnah. There's a Mishnah. Elahaditnan, or just Elahaditnan. That it says. The Shiva Drachim, 7 ways. Okay, we'll get to it in a second what that means to be Boidik Azav. Okay, right now it's not so important. All you're gonna have to know is Derech end up Pasha Zacha. That's all you have to know. Not Pasha Zacha, but Zacha. There's 7 ways to check out Azav, and I'll tell you what they are in a minute. But first, keep the kasha. Nisni, if you tell me it's a lush in the cave of Derech, it should say Sheva Drachim Boikim Es Azav. If Derech is lush in the keva, don't say Shiva, which is Zacha. Say Sheva, which is the keva. And for the Gemara, Mishin the Geboy Lemisni Derech. The Ashken Derech, there be lush in Zacha. Guess what? You know why? We play both ways. It's Zacha Dichsiv. B'derech, it says by the Teichacha. If we don't sin, what does it say? B'derech echad yetzu elecha. And one derech they'll come against you. Ubeshiva drachim yenusu lefanecha. Ubeshiva drachim. Shiva is lashon of zacha, and 7 ways they're going to run away from you. So we conjugated derech there. Shiva. Shiva means zacha. So what do you see? You see that what the pasuk it says derech is lashon zacha. Thus we say b'shiva drachim b'aikim esazav. Now, guys, you have 2 steers now. You have steers and pesukim, and you have steers and mishnayos. You have steers and pesukim from Matan Torah to the Teichacha, and you have a steer Kidushin where it's the lashon of the keva to the Mishnah in Zav where it's zacha. So you have 2 steers to answer. Read the Gemara. If you're telling me that derech is the lashon of zacha, kasha kroya dadi. You have a problem both pesukim and shver. Or what? By Matan Torah, you're telling me it's lashon the keva, and he's telling lashon zacha. The kasha nami masnisan adadi, and now you also have a shver kai from Kidushin to Zav. Says my cry like kasha. It's not a pas. Pas in Pasha Shmois by Matan Torah. The Torah koi. It's speaking about the Torah itself. The Torah ikri lashon the keva. The Torah is called lashon the keva. Dichsiv Torah Hashem tamima meshivas nafesh. So kasav lo b'lashon the keva. Now I would think someone might ask me. We just saw it twice, right? So what's the answer? Torah itself, the title is nekeva. The way it's written throughout the Torah is speaking as zacha. In other words, Torah, it's called the Torah itself that you tell me Torah Hashem Tamim Meshivas Nafesh, that is lashon nekeva. Masha'en came the Torah when it's written, or the parshios as they go through the narrative, that's the lashon. It's written lashon zacha. So therefore, by Torah it's lashon nekeva. Hasam by the Teichachan in the Devarim Chav Ches, the Melchemes Koi. It's speaking about Melchama. And who goes to war? The Daka Shalish Lasses Milchama, and Daka Shalish Lasses Milchama, Kasul Lashim Zacha. So you answered up the Mishnayos. You answered up the Pesukim. Okay, guys. So what was that kasha? Right, the Gemara kasha. It's such saying B'Shleisha Ishnik is B'Shleisha Derachim because Derech is Lashim Zacha. Says the Gemara, no, Derech is Lashim the Keva. Derech is Lashim the Keva. So therefore it says Shalish. Where do you know Derech Lashim the Keva from Matan Torah? Where do you know that? Okay, so but we have a Mishnah in Masechta Zavim. Why does it say over there the Shiva Drachim Baitim Es Zav, and over there Shiva is Lashon Zacha? It says Derech. Here's Taka Lashon the Keva. There's Lashon the Zacha, the Lashon Zacha. So you got a problem. Psukim that go ahead. I think I missed the point. The pasuk by the Teichacha says that what that it says that they're going to run away 7 Shiva. They're going to run away Shiva. So you have a steer in Psukim. You have a steer in Mishnayos. We're answering the steer in Psukim. By Shmois Pashas Torah Lashon Nekeva. By Teichacha, which is speaking on Milchama, who goes to war. Men go to war, and therefore it's Lashon of Zacha. Now, what about the stira in Mad in Mishnayos from Kidushin to Zav, right? Masnisan Adadi like Kasha and Mishnayos also not shver. Hachadol Gabe Ishakoi. Here we're speaking about a woman Kitani Laba Lashon Nekeva, right? Isha Niklis B'Shalish Drachim. Hasam Del Gabe Ishkoi. Okay, now that Zav is speaking about an ish. The Daka Shalish lived like being Daka Shalish lived like. Okay, now I have to fill in. Here's the information I have to fill in now. Okay, guys, just a little. Bear with me a little bit. You know this already. You heard it already 100 times, but it's one that's going to be forgotten. There's 2 parshas in the Torah. There's parshas of Zav and parshas of Zava. A Zava is the following: you have 7 days of a month and 11 days following that. The women used to have to keep a cheshbon exactly what days they were holding it. Right? If they saw within the 7-day period, they were nida, and as long as they stopped at the end. 11 days, within 11 days, if they would see once, right? They shemeres yom keneged yom, twice shemeres yom keneged yom, 3 times zayin nekiyim. You have to keep. So it depends upon days. It doesn't depend upon re'iyos. It depends upon how many days consecutively. That a woman bisman hazeh keeps zayin the kiyim is because since they don't know the 7-11, they don't know where they are, so they're going to keep the zayin the kiyim because maybe their blood went through the days of the 11 days. Okay, now it doesn't make a difference what brought on her flow. It doesn't make a difference. She ate cholent that brought on the flow. She jumped and put on the flow. She got sick and brought on the flow. It doesn't make a difference. We don't have to be boidika to see why she became a zav. It's unnecessary. A zav, on the other hand, is a different guy. A zav, it depends. Doesn't depend upon days. It depends upon re'iyas, how many times you see. If he sees once, he's a balkari. Whether he saw by jumping or eating or snorting or whatever he did, the 7 ways you check, he's still a balkari, because a zav is no different than a balkari based upon the first re'iyah. It's the second re'iyah that counts. That second re'iyah is going to make him tummy for 7 days. That second re'iyah is going to make him a zav. A third re'iyah will make him a zav after 7 days and have to bring a carbon. But the key is the second re'iyah. If that second re'iyah, we check out and say he ate something that possibly could have made it seem, then it's not going to. It's going to consider an onus, and it won't be a second re'iyah. He'll remain a balkari that goes to the mikveh in the evening and is tahar. He won't have to keep zayin the kiyim. Depending if we can be soymef that something, one of 7 things went ahead and brought that about. So now it comes out very geshmak. That Mishnah said b'shiva drachim baikim es azov had to be speaking about a male, because a female we're never going to do bedika because it doesn't make a difference. So therefore, it's very geshmak. Our Mishnah over here in Kidushin that's speaking about a woman getting engaged, getting married. So how do we say lashon shalish, a lashon of lashon lekeva? Mashen came there b'shiva drachim baikim es azov. It's dafka zav. It's dafka male, and therefore, what do we say? B'shiva we use the lashon of zacha. Very geshmak. Let's just see it in the words. One line before it gets right. Hachad al gabe ishtakoi katani la b'lashon lekeva. Pasam the gabe ishkoi the darker shall ish live doik vein darker shall ish live by dik. It's not the way of a woman. Why? The ishanami b'aynis mitama, because a woman, even if she saw b'aynis, even if she one of the 7 ways that brought it about, she would still be tamei. So tana lashon zacha. Okay. Now, my timer tani shalosh mishum drachim. Okay. Now in our Mishnah, guys, right? In our Mishnah, what did we learn? We said you learn drachim, which is a lashon nekeva. So there we learn shalosh. Nisni devarim. In other words, I want to be I'm not giving up on this. I'm giving up. The Torah was written in the lashon of man. I'm not giving up this. In other words, I can go ahead, speak about a female, and still work in a shleisha. If I use the word dvarim, davar, b'shleisha isha niknis, b'shleisha devarim. A woman can be acquired b'shleisha devarim. Now shleisha, I'm mekayim what? The Torah, which lashon zacha. And I'm not stuck with derech, which could be lashon, right? So when you say dava, okay, it says now, what would the advantage be of listening to Dvarim? Guys, what's the advantage? Now you're not subject to sometimes male, sometimes female. It's vaday zacha. By using the word drachim, you're subject to the possibility of a lashon zacha or a lashon nekeva, as we saw. It can be used either way. But if I use the word davar, if I use the word davar, then I have no problem, because it has to be lashon zacha. Then it says no. My time to shalish mishum midrachim nisni devarim v'nisni shleisha. It says one mishum the geboy lemisnei bia ubia ikri derech, and bia is called a derech, and therefore I can't use davar. Yechsiv v'derech gever ba'alma ki derech isha mina efes. The derech of a man against a young girl is like the derech of an isha mina efes, an adulteress. We see the word derech is used by bia. Now, so therefore, what's the reason we learn drachim and not devarim is because of one of the 3 ways is bia. Everybody can say says bia, because of bia. So since we couldn't learn anything but derech because of bia, so you could go after right. Since star and kesef, you could say davar, and the Torah is in lashon shleisha. So why are you going ahead and using learn derech? Doesn't matter. Again, eventually they're the tzarech bia. In other words, for a bia of kedushin, for a bia to be miyachid her, you need the act of kedushin. So it's leading to a bia. So that's what. So one teretz is that even the other 2 have shaykhs to bia. Therefore, you learn derech and we don't learn davar. For the Gemara, everybody sema why derech and not davar. Another reason. Money Reb Shimon who's the Tana of Mishnah? Reb Shimon. The Tanya of Shimon Aimer. The Imam Torah, why does the Torah write if a man takes a woman? Like Kosav, if a woman is taken to a man, why do we go ahead and make it dependent upon him? Right? It says because the lashon kiyikach is mashma bal karcha, guys, right? Guys, kiyikach means he takes her, it's mashma lashon bal karcha, correct? And what did we see earlier? No good. Why does the lashon kisilokach isha if a woman is taken? It's mashma with her ratzin. It's mashma with her ratzin. Kisilokach isha lish. If the darker shalish lachs her alisha, being darker shalish lachs her alisha, who goes after who? A man goes after a woman, not a woman goes after a man. Obviously, things have changed. Mashal adam shel avdalei aveda. So a person lost an aveda. Man lost his side, he lost his rib. Who goes after who? Balaveda machs al vidasai. The balaveda he goes after what is aveda. So therefore, in this case, right, he's going to go looking for, and therefore what? That's another reason why we learn derech. Ki derech ish to go after a man, a woman rather than a man. It says, "Tanam bezayin drachim boitkim es azov, listening devarim." In other words, okay, so and there you don't have the svara. Again, what's the advantage over there, guys? In other words, you already learned the lashon of shiva, correct? So what's the kasha? What's the answer? The answer is learn dava, which is only zacha, rather than derech, which can be in the kaver. Again, it's a very geschmack of pshat and nachlas Moshe, right? You're playing both ways. Learn a lashon that clearly is only zacha. Why are you going to go ahead and use a lashon of one that could be derech? Yes, nit. Hasam hakamashmalon. The darka the michla yisera lasli de ziva. It's dark of eating a lot to bring to zav. The darker the mishnah yisera lasli de ziva. Okay, I think we should stop over here. Basically, we're going to keep on hacking that. Thank you all for listening. Nice to see Meya.
Thank you.